On June 27, 1844, roughly 200 armed men stormed a county jail in Illinois, shot 2 unarmed prisoners to death in broad daylight, and walked away. 9 men were later indicted for the killings, 5 stood trial. Every single one of them was acquitted. This isn't a story about religion. It's a story about a mob that got away with murder, and the town that let them. The men killed were Joseph Smith and his brother Hyrum. Joseph was the founder of a fast-growing religious movement based in Nauvoo, Illinois, a city he built himself on the banks of the Mississippi River. By 1844, Nauvoo had its own city government, its own armed militia, and a population large enough to swing Illinois elections. To his followers, Joseph Smith was a prophet. To a lot of his neighbors, he was something closer to a warlord running his own private kingdom inside American borders. That tension had been building for years, but it detonated in the summer of 1844. A group of former insiders, led by a man named William Law, who'd once been one of Smith's closest advisors, published a single newspaper issue called the Nauvoo Expositor. It accused Smith of secret polygamy and authoritarian abuse of power inside his own church. Smith didn't respond in court. Instead, he used his control of the Nauvoo City Council to declare the newspaper a public nuisance, and on June 10th, he ordered the city marshal to destroy the press with an axe and burn every copy in the street. That single act of censorship is what actually got Joseph Smith killed. Newspapers across Illinois exploded with outrage, led by Thomas Sharp, editor of a rival paper called the Warsaw Signal. Sharp didn't just report on the story, he organized against Smith directly, using his paper to call openly for armed action. Warrants were issued for Joseph and Hyrum on charges of inciting a riot. Under a promise of protection from Illinois Governor Thomas Ford, the 2 brothers turned themselves in and were locked inside the Carthage County Jail on June 24th, awaiting trial. That promise of protection turned out to be worthless. In the days before the attack, armed militia units gathered openly in the surrounding towns. Meetings were held. Plans were made in plain sight. Thomas Sharp and a militia colonel named Levi Williams were later named by witnesses as key organizers of what came next. On the morning of June 27th, Governor Ford left Carthage for Nauvoo, taking his personal guard with him and leaving the Smith brothers behind with a local militia that despised them. That afternoon, roughly 150 to 200 men, several with their faces blackened with gunpowder to hide their identities, marched on the jail. The guards stationed to protect the prisoners put up only token resistance. The mob broke through the door within minutes. Hyrum Smith was shot first and killed almost instantly. Joseph Smith, wounded multiple times, tried to escape through a second-story window and was shot as he fell, dying in the courtyard below. Witnesses said both brothers were shot again after they were already dead. The mob dispersed within minutes, melted back into the surrounding towns, and by the next morning, were back home as if nothing had happened. For months, nobody was charged with anything. It took until October for a grand jury to finally indict 9 men for the killings, and even then, 4 of the men most directly tied to the actual shooting fled the county and were never arrested. Only 5 men stood trial in May of 1845. Thomas Sharp, the newspaper editor who'd spent weeks calling for exactly this outcome. Levi Williams, the militia colonel accused of leading the armed men to the jail, and 3 other local militia officers. The jury took less than a day to acquit every single one of them. The verdict wasn't really a surprise. The jurors, the witnesses, and the men on trial all came from the same tightly connected communities that had spent the previous months organizing against the Smiths in the first place. A mob doesn't get convicted by the same people who cheered it on. 9 men indicted, 5 put on trial, 0 convictions. That's not a legal system failing by accident. That's a legal system working exactly the way the people running it wanted it to. The killings didn't just end 2 lives. They ended any chance of the Latter-day Saints staying in Illinois at all. Within a year, most of the Mormon population of Nauvoo packed up and marched west under a new leader, Brigham Young, eventually founding a new settlement over 1,000 miles away in Utah, a migration triggered directly by the fact that an American county had just proven, in open court, that it would not protect 2 men from being executed by their own neighbors. Nobody in Hancock County ever served a single day for what happened at Carthage Jail. The men who organized it lived out their lives as respected local figures. The only lasting consequence was that an entire religious movement concluded, correctly, that Illinois would never give them justice, and left. That's the actual ending of this story. Not mystery, not ambiguity, a conspiracy that succeeded in broad daylight, and a jury that made sure it stayed that way.